Hey everyone, it's Blake, and we're back here with episode 2 of our TW 2020 game with WWE in 2021. And as promised on episode 1, which was the introduction to our series, I would highly recommend checking that out if you want to kind of get a feel for what we're going to be doing. We have made some changes with the schedule and some of the titles, so be sure to check that out. But it is time for the WWE Draft, 2021 draft here. And that is what we discussed heading into our brand split that we're going to have with our brand-specific pay-per-views and all of that. Also, some of the changes with the titles. So let's get right into it. It is time for the draft, and we are going to go through and make our picks for each of Raw and SmackDown to kind of give you an idea of what to expect on each show going into it. For starters, let's begin with assigning some of the people that are already the champions. And what we're going to do is I've unbranded everyone minus just sort of the, road agents, personalities, commentators, that kind of thing. So I left all of those for the same for right now. I may make some of those changes, but those are very minor compared to the actual wrestlers that we're going to put on specific brands. So what we're going to do is, to start with, we are going to put together the champions on each of the rosters, each of the brands, because we know who they are. So let's do that to begin with. And just so you know, I have already sort of drafted these. I've drafted everyone on my spreadsheet and such, but I'm going to do it sort of here, on this particular video, just to have some fun and make it a little more interactive with the draft. So I've already put this together. It took me quite a bit of time trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to have the Raw and SmackDown rosters, but let's jump into it. So we've got to start with our champions, and we'll start with Raw. Bobby Lashley, currently still the WWE Champion, so he is going to be assigned to Raw. So we've got Lashley on Raw. We know that our main champion on SmackDown is still the Tribal Chief himself, Roman Reigns. So we're going to go ahead and put Roman Reigns on SmackDown, and he is there. And from there, we also have the Sheamus, who is our United States champion. So he will now, once again, put himself in a position where he is on Raw. So we're going to put Sheamus on Raw. And I promise this will speed up a little bit once we get the champions because we have a pretty good idea of where everyone is headed. But Apollo Crews, currently the Intercontinental Champion, he will go to SmackDown. So there are our individual champions as of now. And I forgot, we've also got the women's champions to add, and Rhea Ripley, the Raw women's champion, as of the start of this save. We are putting her on Raw. And of course, the SmackDown's women's champion is Bianca Belair. She is on SmackDown. So those are our individual champions as of this moment. As I mentioned in the previous episode, we've done away with the Raw and SmackDown tag team titles to form one tag team championship for both the men and the women. We've got our women's champions, Natalya and Tamina. They're going to stay unbranded because they're going to float around between both brands. The same will be the case for the team that we ultimately crown as our WWE Tag Team Champions, which we will be doing soon enough. So there's a little teaser for what you can expect. So now we get into the actual fun part of the draft, and we will start with SmackDown getting a choice. So Roman Reigns is there. You've got some of the other champions. We talked about Apollo Crews as the Intercontinental Champion. SmackDown, the first choice we made was sending Drew McIntyre to SmackDown. So Drew McIntyre is going to join Roman Reigns on that brand. Raw, their first selection, Bobby Lashley, current champion. We're going to send AJ Styles to Raw. So Raw is going to have AJ Styles. And from there, SmackDown's next choice, loading up here for SmackDown pretty early on. When you look at how this is unfolding, and yes, if you're a fan of good wrestling and potential storylines at some point between former friends, well, you could get it because Seth Rollins is going to be on SmackDown with Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, and such. Raw, first choice, or next choice, excuse me. We've got Bobby Lashley, we've got AJ Styles there. Raw needs a nice babyface on that side, and they've got a couple to choose from here. But they're going to start with Edge. So we're going to have Edge on Raw. From there, we are going to add the next choice for SmackDown, which is Bray Wyatt. So Bray Wyatt joins SmackDown, and I know you guys will go through this and you'll get a much clearer picture of each of the rosters once we actually start booking shows. I know this is kind of, can be a little difficult to follow since it does send the workers away from, because we do have it, between unbranded right now, and we'll kind of switch back and forth to give you an idea of what it looks like. But you'll get a clear picture, and we'll go through after the draft and do that. So Bray Wyatt goes to SmackDown. The next choice for Raw, Daniel Bryan. How about that? So Daniel Bryan joins Edge, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles on Raw. SmackDown's next choice is someone that I think that has had a nice little run. He's been a former champion, and now he will be on the SmackDown brand, and that is Kofi Kingston. So Kofi Kingston goes to SmackDown, and from there back to Raw, who is going to bring in a mainstay of WWE and someone who, as we know, has kind of been a mainstay on Raw here for the last little bit, and Raw will draft Randy Orton. So Randy Orton heads to Raw. And for SmackDown, next up, we've got trying to sort of put, we want to be able to put a nice little team together. So we're going to go ahead at this point. You probably predicted it, but we're going to add Xavier Woods on SmackDown. So Xavier Woods heads to SmackDown, back to Raw. We've got a couple choices here. We just talked about Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Well, sorry, we're not getting the full New Day connection on SmackDown because Big E is going to be on Raw. So we're putting Big E on Raw here. From there, we've got another selection for SmackDown, and that is going to be someone who has had an interesting tenure with the WWE. We'll see what we can do with him moving forward, and that is Shinsuke Nakamura. So Nakamura is heading to SmackDown. On Raw, we've got someone who has been pushed very, very well recently, finally, for the first time in a while. Cesaro head to Raw, and we will see how we book him and compare to how he's been booked in WWE over the years. Cesaro is on Raw. Back to SmackDown. We know we've got Bianca Belair as our women's champion. She needs some challengers, and we will start with the one and only Charlotte Flair. She heads to SmackDown. And now we will go back to Raw, where Rhea Ripley, who is the women's champion there, she also needs some challengers. And we're going to give her one in Bayley. She's going to head to Raw. Back to SmackDown, where we look at it, and you've got a situation where, hey, once again, Bianca Belair, women's division, we're trying to sort of prop it up a bit. We've got Bianca, we've got Charlotte Flair on SmackDown. We've also got Asuka now. So Asuka heads to SmackDown. Back to Raw, where this is going to be intriguing, I think, for some people. Rhea Ripley, Sasha Banks. Yes, that's an option because Sasha Banks is heading to Raw. So Sasha Banks joins Bayley and Rhea Ripley there as sort of the cornerstone of the Raw women's division. So we're going to go a couple more of these and kind of give you sort of the top picks, and then we'll kind of go through and we'll kind of just go in order in terms of just picking the rest of the roster for Raw and the rest of the roster for SmackDown. I know this can get a little bit tedious if you're going through and want to be able to see the rosters and where they're at. So right now, if you look at Raw, there is what we have to work with. We see kind of where things are at on Raw right now with the top stars, Bobby Lashley, Big E, AJ Styles. The women's stars, as we said, Cesaro, Edge, Daniel Bryan, all there. If you look at SmackDown right now, you've got Roman Reigns, you've got Drew McIntyre, you've got Seth Rollins, and up and down the line there. So we will go through a couple more of these on each side, and then we'll kind of just run down the rest of the roster. We'll plug them in, and then we'll do a bit of an overview of each roster and kind of look at some of the strengths that we have on each. I honestly can't even remember whose pick it is at this point. I think it's SmackDown's pick. So we're going to go SmackDown, and we're going to make this pretty easy. Yes, I know it's kind of cheating, but obviously we're going to have the Usos on SmackDown, so we're going to go ahead and add Jimmy and Jay to the SmackDown brand there. And so since we picked two on that side, we will also pick two on the Raw side, which is going to, we'll add a bit of a team here, although will they be a team in this particular save? We'll find out. John Morrison and The Miz are going to be on Raw, so we will plug them into this spot, and we head back to SmackDown, where we have another very good singles wrestler to add to the mix, and that is going to be someone that's a former Intercontinental Champion, and we'll see if he's able to get that back. That's Sami Zayn. He stays on SmackDown, of course, as he is in real life, so he'll go there. Also, back to Raw, where his longtime foe needs a place as well, but they will not be fighting. They're going to stay away from each other for now, and that's going to be Kevin Owens heading to Raw. So let's go ahead and just add a couple more of these here. We're going to add a couple on SmackDown. I am looking at my list here, and King Corbin, he is next on SmackDown, as is Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss, I know, has been playing a much different character here as of late, but as I think you're going to see, we're going to use her more as Alexa Bliss, more, the normal character, although, hey, I've been a fan of some of the stuff they've done, but we will see what the character looks like for Alexa Bliss. She's going to be on SmackDown. I mentioned King Corbin. He's also headed to SmackDown. We're going to put him there. And then on Raw, we'll add a couple more selections here where on Raw, you're going to have the duo of Dominic and Rey Mysterio. They both head to Raw. So now we're going to kind of fill out the roster. This is where I think we start to get into, more of your mid-card acts and such. So we will kind of highlight some of these as we go through. But let's start with this. Angel Garza is going to head to Raw. Also going to have the Street Profits on Raw. So let's get Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford. They also head to Raw here. And we're also going to have on Raw, we kind of teased him a little bit in the previous episode, Chad Gable going to be on Raw. Let's see what I have in store for him when we kind of teased the face turn in the previous episode with him. Also on the women's side on Raw, we're going to add a couple people to the mix here. Liv Morgan joining the group, and so is Carmella, who, as we saw right now, is a little bit unhappy morale-wise. We'll see what we can do there. Also adding on the Raw women's side, we're going to have Mandy Rose joining the group. From there, MVP, we've got to have him because we've got Bobby Lashley on Raw. We've got to have MVP there. And let's see who else we have to add to the mix. We're going to go over to SmackDown here for a second, make some additions for them. On SmackDown, we are going to have Cedric Alexander join the group. And speaking of which, let's jump back to Raw real quick because Cedric and Shelton Benjamin are going to be split. Benjamin's on Raw. We've got that there. Back to SmackDown. We need some more tag team guys. We need Eric and Ivar, the Viking Raiders, there to SmackDown. We also need a guy that I should have added a little bit earlier, but Jeff Hardy going to be on SmackDown. So is the former leader of Retribution. Yes, Mustafa Ali. And I think you can probably have a pretty good guess that I am not going to use Mustafa Ali as the leader of Retribution. We need some more women's stars on the SmackDown side as well. That's where we're going to add in Naomi. By the way, on Raw, we need some more women's stars also. Nikki Cross is going to head to Raw. Let's see who else we have here. By the way, for the people, we're not going to draft everyone because there are some people that are unavailable. Right now, unavailable. Becky Lynch, John Cena. There are some others that are unavailable. Keith Lee, also unavailable in this save as of right now. So I will let you'll see where they land once they return. But right now, we're not going to put them on any specific brands because I would rather use that as a bit of a teaser for not knowing where they are going to wind up. We forgot about Damian Priest earlier. He's also going to be on SmackDown, as is Elias. And so is Jinder Mahal. And we've also got, speaking of Retribution, we're going to have to split up the friends of Mace and T-Bar. So if you're enjoying their tag team in real life, I'm sorry. I don't really have any plans for that at the moment. So Mace heads to SmackDown. T-Bar is going to head to Raw, and we will see if those names hold. There's another little teaser for what you could expect there. We got rid of the 24/7 title. Unfortunately, our friend R-Truth probably not too happy about it, but he does get to be on the SmackDown brand, so maybe he's going to be excited about that. Same is the case for Otis. He will be on SmackDown. Omos also there. We're going to put Omos on Raw, so he will be staying with AJ Styles, even though they're no longer the Raw Tag Team Champions because we got rid of that title. Elsewhere, we've got to add someone who, in my opinion, has been very underutilized. Ricochet is going to Raw. Also have, let's see who we have here, Eva Marie, who has made her return. I know the red would kind of flow with that there, but she's headed to SmackDown. Eva Marie is on SmackDown. Lacey Evans, that's someone else who is away. Maternity leave, so she's not going to be on any brand as of the start of this game. More women's stars we need to add. Nia Jax, she's headed to SmackDown, so there's something there with her. Shayna Baszler, her teammate, we'll see if they actually stay teammates. She's also headed to SmackDown. So is Sonya Deville. She is going to be on SmackDown. We'll see what role we use her in moving forward. And I think for the most part, those are the main ones. The rest we will probably just add to the mix based on you just kind of see where they pop up, because they are kind of your, lower card group there. I think, for example, wait a second, we still got Dolph Ziggler. Hold on, we got to add. I forgot about Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler is he is going to be on Raw as part of the tag team with Robert Roode, and as you can tell, there's just a lot to make sure I've covered all the bases here with everyone that are sort of the top stars. So I'm going to look down the list here real quick, and the rest you will kind of see pop up in different areas throughout this. And again, this is not taking away from anyone, but some of these will, if they're not being drafted in these main featured spots, you're probably getting a good idea of where they're going to start. Doesn't mean they'll stay there, but that is kind of what we're looking at here. And there could also be some, we're going to add Riddle. I forgot about Riddle. Remember, with Riddle, we're working with, he's going to be on SmackDown. We're working with the Toxic label, which you get in this game. So Riddle is going to be put in a situation where he is starting out Toxic in the game. So I don't know exactly what our usage is going to be with him. We've got to figure that out, because he is considered Toxic to start this game. So we've got to figure out what we're going to do with that. So what I will do real quickly, I'm going to go ahead and add these ones that I see on the list here, and we will just quickly run through them to add them to the spots that they are going to be in. Akira Tozawa, Mansoor. I won't give you a lot of commentary on these necessarily. Drew Gulak also headed to Raw. Our poor guy. I also think Slapjack's going to get a bit of an overhaul. Sorry to the Retribution fans, but Slapjack is not necessarily going to be used in his same role. Also, we have on our roster, I'm looking at Rick Boogs is headed to Raw as well. Riddick Moss is out with a torn ACL, so he's not headed anywhere. Let's add some of the SmackDown group real quickly. Malik, Humberto Cabrillo, Lince Dorado. Oh, we forgot about Commander Aziz. Of course, he's headed to SmackDown with Apollo Crews. Dana Brooke, I forgot to add her. She's on SmackDown. Jackson Riker also on SmackDown. We've got, Rinku and Shanky are headed to SmackDown as well. And as you can see, things really coming together here. The rosters, we have them pretty much the way we want them. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else I left out that is not currently either unavailable or an active wrestler at this point. Reckoning, there you go, also headed to SmackDown. Rick Moss, as I said, injured. And the rest, Tamina and Natalya. Oh, we forgot about Titus. Titus is headed to, I've got him on SmackDown. And we've got the women's champions, Natalya and Tamina. They're going to stay unbranded, and as will the next champions. So, or the men's champions that we will eventually add. So there we go with Raw. We've got Raw and SmackDown. Our draft has come together. Sorry, I was kind of all over the place with that, but I'm trying to look at my sheet as I'm making some of these picks, and I tried to give you a little bit of suspense on that. But it's kind of hard to do sometimes in this game unless you're doing just kind of a multiplayer draft on some of these. So you just kind of have to go through and pick them as it is. And I didn't want to just pick this, as I went along, because I wanted to have a plan in place, which I don't think is the strong suit sometimes for WWE. So I wanted to have a plan before I put together the draft and put it together on this video. So I didn't just want to draft and then wind up with 28 faces on one side and 8 heels and that kind of stuff. So if we look at Raw, I think right off the bat, what jumps out at me with this group is, we've got a pretty nice and versatile main event scene where you've got, your champion in Bobby Lashley, but you've also got AJ Styles, you've got Orton, you've got Daniel Bryan, you've got Edge. There's a lot of different things you can do with those guys in particular, but you've also got that sort of upper mid-card level where you've got guys like Big E and Cesaro and so forth that are kind of starting to hopefully make that jump up, and that gives you some possible intriguing matchups with those guys potentially moving forward on the brand. And then on the women's side, I think you've got a pretty strong women's group here, having Bayley and Sasha Banks on the same side here with Rhea Ripley. And I think you've got some others that could make a bit of a jump forward, like Liv Morgan. I think we've got Nikki Cross here as well. So I think that's an interesting group on the women's side. Tag team wise, as I'll say with the entire WWE, there's a lot of work to be done with the tag team division. That's why we got rid of the Raw and SmackDown tag titles. So really, you've got the Dirty Dogs, you've got the Street Profits, but we need to build up that tag team division to really, kind of be able to do some different things. And I think you've also got some other talent here that could be set for some nice pushes in terms of going from maybe lower on the card to up, or making their move up. Where I think there are some here that you'll see that are going to have that opportunity to do that. If we go to SmackDown, obviously you've got the head of the table, Roman Reigns leading the way, but you've got, really a very stacked main event scene on SmackDown when you've got Roman Reigns with Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt. They're all there. And you've got some guys underneath that with Shinsuke Nakamura. You've got Kofi Kingston. There's a lot of good single stars underneath. Sami Zayn, you go up and down the line. So I think Apollo Crews, our current Intercontinental Champion, could have some nice opponents that he could work with. The women's division, I also think, is one that there's a lot of possibility. Bianca Belair, you've got Charlotte Flair, but you've also got Asuka, you've got Naomi, you've got Shayna Baszler. Like the women's division on this side is pretty stacked too. So I think we've done a nice job splitting the women's division to where I think it's pretty balanced on both sides. And I think that's really going to help in terms of our booking and the different ideas that we're going to have to work with. But I really like how the draft turned out. I think it's pretty nice for the most part. I think it's split pretty well. You guys tell me in the comments, do you think Raw won? Do you think SmackDown won? You can kind of get a good idea of where you think, people may land in terms of the card and all that. But we've got a lot of exciting stuff in the works here. I will tell you right off the bat, we've already got a pretty good idea of where we're going to get to, several months out. So we've got our plans in place for the first several events that we're going to hold, which going back to it, our first one will be King of the Ring. We've already got that in place. We've got our plans ready for that. As of right now, I have a pretty good idea who I think is going to win the King of the Ring, but that could change depending on what I decide to do there. But I think we've got the tournament put together the way we want it. We've also already, I think for the most part, we've got a pretty good idea of where we're headed at Great American Bash, which will be a SmackDown branded show, and SummerSlam. So I think we're doing a pretty good job thus far in the booking room, which of course consists of me. But I think we've done a good job thus far building out our first three events. We kind of know where we want to head with those, and we've also got a pretty good idea of where we're headed after that. But in more detail, we've got the first three pretty much booked out at this point. So I like to stay ahead, because when you have such a big roster like this, it's very hard to kind of get lost sometimes, and you can kind of head in the direction and you don't really know where you're going with it. But I think we've done a good job already putting that in place where we've got an idea of where we want to head. So there are the rosters. So we have it set. We've got our Raw, we've got our SmackDown, and this is what we're going to work with here as we move forward in this WWE Save in 2021 here on TW 2020. So now in the next episode, we're going to jump into Raw. It will be our first episode of Raw, and we will see kind of where things begin as we start the march to King of the Ring, 27 days. So we've got some work to do to build up our King of the Ring tournament, and we will see what that looks like on the next episode. But we start, as we said, with some of the things that we still have to get together here. We've got to work on some of these things, and we will address that in the next episode of the the video here, and we will of the series. We will work on trying to see what we can do. We will address some of these after the event, which will also, I'm sure, have some mail, and we'll kind of focus on stuff like this after each of the events we get into. So we still need to work on that, which, we're not even advancing a day yet, because we've done all this to begin with, our draft and everything. So we will address this stuff here and see what we can do. Certainly some very important items we need to address on some of these. So we will get into that. But there you go. There is our draft for each of our brands, and I'm excited. I think the draft turned out well. Again, let me know. Who do you think won? Was it Raw? Was it SmackDown? who won the draft and which brand are you very intrigued by off the bat. Hopefully you're going to enjoy both of them, because that would be quite nice. But I know there are some people that may end up preferring Raw, some may prefer SmackDown, but I think we've got a pretty good balance here in terms of what our rosters look like, and I think there's a lot of intriguing storylines in the works. So, as always, be sure to subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. That way you can follow this series. We've got a playlist for it, so you'll be able to get them all. Just go to the playlist, TW 2020, WWE 2021. You can find that on the channel, WrestleBlake, of course, as we call it. And, yeah, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And thanks for all the great feedback thus far. We got some good stuff on the first episode, and this is number 2. And number 3, as I said, we'll begin the foundation of the WWE moving forward, as we will start with Raw in Week 1, June 2021. So be sure to subscribe, and I will talk to you guys next time here as we get into Episode 3 and a look at our first show, WWE Raw.